Hello and welcome to another episode of BARD Talk when we look at the language of Shakespeare. Now there is another video on iambic pentameter which you can watch either before or after this video, and this one is all about stressed and unstressed syllables which you need to understand to be able to get a grip on iambic pentameter. The thing about stressed and unstressed syllables is we use them all the time even if we don't realise. So my name is Christopher. And when I say it, I put the stress on Chris. The rest of it is unstressed. So these are the symbols we use if we want to be able to show that in a word. So I would put a little dash over the Chris because that's what I emphasise, and then the rest are two unstressed. So it's Christopher. You can do this, let's do it with Shakespeare, seeing as that's what we're here to discuss. Shakespeare, you can hear that it's the first syllable that is emphasised, Shakespeare. Okay, so stressed and unstressed. If you did them the other way around, they wouldn't sound right. Shakespeare, with the stress on the second one. And that's because they're both nouns, and nouns tend to have the first syllable stressed. If you move the stress to the second syllable, it tends to be a verb. If you don't believe me, I'll show you what I mean by looking at these over here. Let's say your friend is upset and you want to make them feel better. You might console them, and that's a verb. So we'll put our verbs here. So you might console them, and you can hear that the stress is on the second syllable. They might be a fan of computer games, so you might suggest they come over and play some Xbox or PlayStation on your console, your game console, and that's the noun. And so now we see that the stress is at the beginning. Noun, stress at the beginning, verb, stress on the second syllable. This works for all of these. So if you talk about the attribute of something, then it's a noun at the beginning. But if you attribute something as a verb, it comes as the second syllable. You talk about an increase, that's the noun, but you increase the volume, that's the verb, stress on the second syllable. You pick up an object, noun, but you object to something, verb. You give someone a present, but you present a lecture, verb. You put on a record to play, back in the olden days, but you record a video like I'm doing now, the verb, stress on the second syllable. You might be a suspect in a robbery, I hope not, but then the police might suspect that you did it. That's the verb, second syllable. Your team wins and they weren't expected to. That's an upset, the noun, stress on the first syllable. But if you're upset about it because you're on the other team, that's the verb, and that's on the other side. So you can see it works quite well. Sometimes where the stress goes can just tell us where somebody comes from, different pronunciations. For example, in America they tend to say Caribbean, whereas in Australia we tend to say Caribbean. In America they tend to say garage, whereas we say garage. In America they might say oregano, where we say oregano. They may say pecan pie, where we say pecan. And they may say advertisement, where we tend to say advertisement. So this is just about pronunciation. But the important thing is that you understand how stresses work so that when you hear 5 stressed syllables, unstressed followed by stressed syllables in a line, you recognise it as iambic pentameter when studying Shakespeare. That's 5 of those da-da beats. And that's what matters. So usually an iambic pentameter line is 10 syllables because it goes da-da, 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 da-da. But the most important thing is not so much the syllables, but finding those beats of those stressed syllables. And if you've got 5 of those, that's the pattern of iambic pentameter. Okay, thank you.